I didn't expect the show to end with 4 seasons, though that does seem to be the typical lifespan for most Disney animated shows. Well, even though Season 3 was a bit of a mess, I'm sure Season 4 will be a huge improvement and the series will end with a very satisfying conclusion.
What? How? Why? I have so many questions!
Hey there YouTube, it's PC the Unicorn. So, the hit Disney cartoon Star vs. the Forces of Evil have finally ended after a 4-year run. If you have been a part of my channel for a while now, then you know I'm a huge fan of the show. After all, when the show first came out, it was a very enjoyable and lively show with great characters, fun stories, and a nice spoof of the magical girl genre. Between the premise of the show and the catchy theme song that I watched on YouTube from its panel at San Diego Comic-Con, I couldn't wait until the premiere of the show. When the show did come out, I was not disappointed and I would always look forward to the newest episode each week. Star truly was a fantastic cartoon. Too bad it went off the rails in the second half of the series and have possibly one of the most unsatisfying cartoon endings next to Things Change from Teen Titans. For the first 2 seasons of the show, Star vs. followed the initial premise of the show. That being the adventures of a magical princess from another dimension going on adventures with her human friend Marco Diaz. However, Season 3 and 4 moved away from the show's initial premise with it being a bit less goofy and more grounded as it focused more on politics and romance drama. Personally, I found the first 2 seasons to be more enjoyable than the second half of the series, with Season 2 being the best season even though it contained some of the worst episodes of the series. Despite Season 1 being mostly slice of life, I honestly didn't mind because I found it to be engaging. The jokes were hilarious, the adventures Star and Marco would go on were fun to watch, and almost all the episodes are solid. Though along with all the jokes and fun adventures, Season 1 was setting up all of these interesting mysteries such as the peculiar room from St. Olga, Toffee connection to the Butterfly family, Heinous connection to the Butterfly family, and what the Blood Moon did to Star and Marco. The season then ended on a strong note with us seeing the first glimpse of the Butterfly's true power, Star getting a new wand, and the ominous ending. As soon as the credits rolled, my excitement for the show increased since I couldn't wait to see what would happen in Season 2. Season 2 raises the stakes, and while we still get a fair amount of slice of life episodes, there was also progression on several plot threads along with the show setting up even more mysteries. I love how Ludo was made into a more menacing antagonist, the Joker build-up was well done with the ship itself being cute, the mystery of the 2 wands was engaging, the Tomko friendship was a pleasant surprise, and seeing Star and Marco go on even more ridiculous adventures was still enjoyable. As I mentioned earlier, Season 2 have some of the worst episodes of the series such as Trickstar, All Belts Are Off, and Heinous. Yet due to the fact that it has more episodes compared to Season 1 along with there being more good episodes than bad, I found that the good outweighs the bad. Like Season 1, Season 2 ended in a bang but bigger with the magical High Commission defeated by Toffee, Moon having to take Star away from Earth due to Toffee, and Star confessing her feelings to Marco before running away and leaving the planet. I remember freaking out even more than I did when Season 1 ended, and I couldn't wait until Season 3, which is ironic considering that when the show went downhill. If you have seen my video, Why Season 3 of Star vs. the Forces of Evil failed, you will know that I'm not a big fan of Season 3. Now for this video, I decided to rewatch the series to see if my opinions about the show still held up. While I still stand by my word about several things I said in my Season 3 video such as Time Star being unnecessary and Star recklessness in Battle for Muni being annoying, I didn't find Marco to be as annoying as I found him the first time I watched Season 3. Don't get me wrong, Marco still did things that annoyed me and felt out of character for him, but it didn't bug me as much the second time around. Though I do feel like if the staff wanted to illustrate that Marco missed Muni, and by Muni I mean Star, it could have been executed better with them going for more of a psychological angle, such as his life on Earth not being as fun as it was when Star entered his life, instead of him constantly bragging about it. Like, imagine Marco believing he sees a monster and he attacks it, but it's just some guy in a costume. Or when he's playing D&D with Ferguson and Alfonso, he doesn't find going on imaginary adventures as fun anymore because he's been on actual magical adventures. These would have been much better ways to show how Marco is struggling to readjust to life on Earth instead of him never being quiet about his past adventures. And despite my many gripes with Season 3, there were things I liked about it. Eclipse was a fun character that I always enjoyed seeing. We got more progression on the monster racism storyline. The show finally started doing something interesting with Heinous after wasting her in Season 2. And the Season 3 finale was pretty good, even though it's not my favorite finale. However, upon going to Season 3 again, I discovered several new problems that I didn't notice the first time I watched Season 3. The biggest problem of the season that carries over to Season 4 besides the romance drama is how it has important moments happen off screen or be unexplained. This first occurred in Battle for Muni, since by the end of the event, we still knew very little about Toffee and how he accomplished what he did to the realm of magic. The only thing we know is that after he lost his finger, he apparently seemed to have done research about the wand and the realm of magic, so he could pull off his plan back in Season 1. I suppose we didn't necessarily need to see him do research about the wand and the realm of magic since it was implied. However, there are several things about Toffee's plan that makes no sense that is left completely unexplained. Some of the things are, why did blowing up Star Wand result in Star Wand shooting green magic? Once in the realm of magic, how exactly did Toffee corrupt the magic? As far as the show implied, Toffee had no magic powers. If he could seemingly take full control of Ludo's body later in Season 2, why did he leave Ludo in the driver's seat? And exactly how and why was Toffee turned into a wand? It's bad enough that we barely learned anything about Toffee as a character, but it's even more frustrating that we don't even know how he accomplished his master plan. After Battle for Muni, we got even more important moments happening off screen, such as scent of a hoodie stating that Marco had been on Muni for most of the summer, something we didn't get a single episode about, and what led Star to wanting to become a better princess. Yes, her ordeal with Toffee must have affected her in a significant way that made her want to be a better princess, yet we don't get to see that shift in her character. Instead, the show decides to just gloss over it and have her suddenly vow to be a better princess. Then there's the matter of Marco's 16 years of training, which the show is very inconsistent about since it can't seem to decide how much of the 16 years he remembers, along with how much it affected him. At the end of Running with Scissors, it seemed to imply that Marco would have a hard time readjusting to life on Earth after all of those years of traveling. Yet we got no hint of that in the rest of Season 2, with his experience not really affecting his personality nor his fighting skills. But in Season 3 and 4, the writers will explain his fighting skills by talking about his 16 years of traveling. So he seems to remember the skills he learned during that time, yet at the same time, all those years of travel didn't really affect his character. Honestly, I wish they would have just made it in which he forgets almost everything from his travels except for the most important things such as nachos. I'm not a big fan of him becoming a better fighter due to 16 years of magical training, since what I liked about Marco from the beginning was that he was just a normal teenager who could fight side by side with Star due to his martial arts training. It would have been nice to see the show do more with that aspect of Marco's character, since after Season 2 it's pretty much dropped. Season 3 had a chance to do several interesting things that were introduced in the first 2 seasons, along with Season 3, but did nothing with them. Along with the ones I mentioned, such as Marco's summer vacation on Muni and Star becoming a better princess, other missed opportunities include showing us how Jackie dealt with Star's confession that she has a crush on Marco, exploring and fleshing out more of the other kingdoms of Muni, and showing us Buff Frog's duties as the World Monster Examiner instead of making him Monster Examiner but then doing nothing with it. Finally, there's Season 4, which is a slight improvement over Season 3 since it goes back to the show roots in some ways with its wacky adventures. Seeing a more laid-back Moon living a domesticated life with River was an interesting choice that I enjoyed. Star teaching Eclipsa how to be a good ruler showed her growth as a character, and it was nice to finally get to know Globgo, even if I would have liked to see more of him. Though what's interesting about Season 4 is that it's more about Eclipsa than Star. While the first 3 seasons was all about Star's growth and her learning to become a better princess, Season 4 involved Star helping Eclipsa become a good queen. Many fans, including myself, always thought that the series would end with Star becoming queen and Marco being by her side, as she ushers in a new age of peace between humans and monsters. I can't help but wonder if that was never going to be the planned ending for Star, or if Darren did consider that ending but changed her mind. Though just like how Season 3 had important moments connected to the characters happen off screen, Season 4 has a fair share of those moments, such as what led to Star deciding to help Eclipsa help rule Muni, showing us how Time came to the realization that he should end things with Star, and showing Moon's decision to backstab Eclipsa. Speaking of Moon, her betrayal comes out of nowhere and her justification for it makes very little sense. She says it's because she can't trust Eclipsa, but Eclipsa really haven't done anything evil. Yes, she prevented Moon from holding Meteora, which resulted in Moon eventually ending up on Pie Island with amnesia, which by the way ended up being totally pointless since it never became a big issue in Season 4. But I wouldn't call what Eclipsa did evil. Eclipsa was just a mother trying to protect her daughter. Plus, she basically undermines all of Star's hard work of trying to make Eclipsa be accepted by the population of Muni. Though when you think about it, Eclipsa really didn't need to become queen, and Darren could have easily had it in which Eclipsa gave Moonrain a Muni after coronation, since Eclipsa never really cared about being queen in the first place. Sure, her being the queen of Muni is her birthright, but as we've seen in Season 4, she cares more about her family than helping the citizens of Muni. The whole reason she's even where she's at now is due to the fact that she ran away from her responsibilities as a queen to be with Globgo. I suppose since most of the public accepted Globgo being free, she decided she wanted to be a good queen for her people, but I feel like after being reunited with the love of her life, Eclipsa would realize there's nothing else she really wants but to be with her family. Thus, Eclipsa gives the title of queen back to Moon. Alternatively, if Moon felt like Eclipsa could improve as a queen, she could have taken over Star World and become Eclipsa World advisor as she helps her. It's a shame what was done with Moon since I enjoyed her for a good portion of Season 4. I also found her facing no punishment for her betrayal to be really frustrating. I mean, I didn't want her to necessarily go to jail, but there should have at least been a wedge in Moon and Star relationship since Moon betrayed her own daughter. Said betrayal then results in a very worse finale that results in the destruction of magic and merging Earth and Muni together. I dislike this for several reasons. 1. The whole plot thread of Eclipsa becoming queen and being accepted by the humans end up being pointless. After all that time and effort Star put into helping Eclipsa become a better queen, it won't even matter anymore since she's now on Earth. So it's not like she's going to become the ruler of Echo Creek. 2. It makes Star mastering her magic pointless. Over the course of the series, We watched Star grow both as a character and her skills in magic, yet now all that training ended up being for nothing. That would be like if in the series finale of Avatar The Last Airbender, instead of just getting rid of Lord Ozai bending, Aang somehow got rid of everyone's bending in the world. 3. The negative implications of what destroying magic did. I get that they didn't have much time to discuss the pros and cons of discussing magic, something that could have been explored in the show. But imagine how many dimensions probably got screwed over by Star's decision. I'm not blaming Star for what she did, cause again, she didn't really have much of a choice. But who knows how many magical beings were killed as a result of destroying the magic. Plus, entire dimensions that may have relied on magic are suddenly sent back to the Stone Age with them having to start from square one. Finally, it's just a terrible way to end a series. Now I don't mind having open-ended story endings, and due to the way Star ended, it allows Darwin to revisit Star one day to tell a new story. But the main reason why this kind of ending doesn't work for Star, but it does for shows like Adventure Time and Gravity Falls, is that there was proper build-up to these endings. There was build-up to Worldmageddon and there was build-up to the Gumball War, yet the plot thread about how magic does more harm than good and it needs to be destroyed comes out of nowhere. The only bit of build-up regarding the idea of magic needing to be destroyed was Battle for Muni, and even then, Toffee didn't launch into a speech about why magic isn't good for anyone. Also, those two shows had the decency to answer and resolve major mysteries and plot threads. Star, however, has been building up mysteries for the past 4 seasons, yet it ends with more questions and answers such as: what was up with the mysterious sailor voice from the Blood Moon Ball episode? I know the voice was Eclipse's father, but that doesn't explain why and how Marco heard the voice. What was the point of foreshadowing the possible return of Monster Arm only for him to never come back? What was the deal with the mysterious room from St. Olga? Why was the Realm of Magic calling Star in the first place? Why did Eclipse Magic not corrupt the Realm of Magic the same way Toffee did? What was the deal with Marco cheek marks? Yes, I know in the Book of Spells it's explained those exposed to magical energy gain cheek marks. But if that's the case, why did Marco cheek marks only show up when he used magic? Also, I shouldn't need to read supplemental information to know that about the cheek marks. That bit of information should have been revealed in the show. What were the exact circumstances of Eclipse's ex-fiancé death? Eclipse claims it's not as simple as people believe it is, yet we really never learn anything more details about Globgo eating him. What was up with Ludo having models of Star and Marco in his season 3 episode since it resulted in nothing? What's the history behind the Monster Temple? We never exactly learn anything about its significance in the show. How was Mina the only Solarian warrior that survived? What was up with Marco's ominous dream back in the Red Belt episode? Whatever happened with Baby? She seemed like a very important character with how she evaluated magic and have even met Eclipse, so why did she never come back? Why did Marco see the blood moon in Bon Bon the birthday clown? And exactly how did a stalker hug in a realm of magic result in Star and Marco worlds being fused together? I'm fine with shows leaving some questions unanswered, but most of the questions I listed are actually very important. So it frustrates me that the shows seem to just forget about them or decided to not answer them. Ironically enough, I forgot about some of the important things due to the show itself never really focusing on them. For example, I forgot about the unicorns from the Realm of Magic along with Eclipse Magic corrupting them, since the show doesn't focus on them until near the end of the series. Because of all these unresolved questions and plot threads, I honestly wish the show would have just been a slice of life coming of age story that would have followed Star and Marco years throughout high school as they dealt with both school life and magical adventures. I know that despite the show taking inspiration from Sailor Moon, Darren said that she never really wanted to focus on the school aspect of the show, but considering how I found the first 2 seasons more enjoyable because of the school angle and the magical adventures, I wish that it would have stayed that way. Season 3 and 4 are basically seasons full of missed opportunities that want to focus more on romance drama and setting up mysteries that will never be answered, instead of focusing on the overarching story and resolving the various mysteries that have been set up. It's hard to say how much of this was a staff fault since I've heard rumors about Disney rushing production on season 3 and 4, along with them meddling with the story. While I haven't found any official sources stating this, it's not totally dismissible since I do know that Disney did meddle with the show in its early conception. For example, their original idea for the show was about Star being a 4th grader who believed she had magical powers but in reality just had an active imagination. This idea ended up being scrapped since an executive recommended her being a teenager who had actual magical powers. Disney also had Darren create Alfonso and Ferguson in order to give Marco some male friends at the start of the series, something Darren didn't originally plan on doing. Now granted, both of these are examples in which the executive meddling with the series wasn't bad, but it still showed that they interfered with the series. So while the staff may be partially to blame for the decline in the show quality, I can buy the fact that the executive meddling may also be a possible factor. To tell a story, you obviously need characters, and Star is filled to the brim with them. Because there are so many characters, I'm going to focus on the most important ones, starting of course with the main leads. One of the reasons why I loved this show to begin with was the dynamic and chemistry between Star and Marco. At the beginning of the series, Star was this kind-hearted yet energetic and reckless girl with mother issues who loved kicking monster butt and just having a fun time. Marco, on the other hand, was an insecure and overly cautious teenager who, despite being regarded as a safe kid, had a drill for adventure. Main characters who are the total opposite of each other are usually fun to watch due to how their contrasting natures bring out the best in each other while also developing them. Because of Marco, Star ended up becoming a less reckless and more mature person. And because of Star, Marco starts partaking in drill-seeking activities without Star having to push him into doing it, along with him becoming more confident. While I do love how the two have developed, there are some problems with said developments. As I mentioned earlier, a good portion of Marco's development seemed to occur during those 16 years of chasing Hekapoo, and with how inconsistent his memory of that time is in the show, it's hard to say how much it affected his character. And while Star did come a long way from season 1, her flaw of running away from her problems was never really resolved. This is most noticeable by how she never talks to Marco about her confession in the season 2 finale until Marco himself brings it up, or how she refuses to acknowledge to herself that while she cares for Tom, she clearly loves Marco, yet it takes Tom breaking up with her for her to finally get that. I also ended up liking Star and Marco less in season 3 and 4, since Star seemed to be a lot less nice compared to how she was in the first 2 seasons, and Marco would act like an idiot. Next we have Tom, who went from Star's troubled ex with anger issues to a more composed and mature character. I like the fact that Tom recognized that he has issues and he chose to work on them instead of being content with who he is. It's also nice seeing him struggle to be a better person and boyfriend, since there are moments during his relationship with Star that show that he still has a lot to work on, but he recognizes his mistakes and aims to be better. So while I may not care much for Tom Star, I do at least appreciate that Tom grows because of the relationship. Though I do wish they didn't make his character development tie so much into his relationship with Star, and would have made solo episodes that showed off other aspects of Tom's character, such as him being the prince of the underworld. I also would have liked to have more Tom and Marco focused episodes such as Frenemies, since I love their bromance. Eclipsa was a fantastic addition to the series, and as I've stated multiple times, was one of the best things that came out of Season 3. I love her mischievous and laid-back nature, with her being morally grey when it comes to a lot of things. While I do think the show could have done more with Eclipsa, such as making a flashback episode that shows off her first meeting with Globgo to her imprisonment, I'm mostly satisfied with what we got from her. As for the less important characters, most of them are good for the most part. While I do understand that Disney made Darren create them, with Darren herself not knowing what to do with them, I really liked Alfonso and Ferguson, and I wish Darren figured out the way to do more with them. I personally found them much more likable and entertaining than Ponyhead, who's apparently one of Darren's favorite characters from the show. I actually didn't mind Ponyhead that much in the first 2 seasons, since she did have funny moments and was used sparingly. However, Season 3 and 4 overused her, with her being very frustrating in Season 4. While Jana is a fun character who has entertaining moments, along with her serving as a nice contrast to Star and Marco, with her laid back and creepy nature, it still bugs me that she ended up having more screen time than Jackie, with her also being more involved in Star and Marco lives than she was, despite the fact that Jackie was Marco's love interest. I'm also just realizing that despite the fact that the show illustrates Jackie and Jana being friends, we actually never really see their friendship within the show. Like, we don't know what their dynamic with each other is like exactly. And while I do like Jana's dynamic with Marco, and even found it sweet that Jana considers Marco a friend, I feel like the show went a bit overboard with Jana's shenanigans, since having her do things such as making Marco hate the taste of nachos came off as a bit too mean-spirited. One pair of characters that I have mixed feelings about are Marco's parents due to how inconsistently written they are. In some episodes, they deeply care for Marco and worry about him, yet in other episodes they are very neglectful. Given how in the show it's revealed that Marco has some issues with his parents due to how childish they act, I feel like there could have been more focus on that plot thread, since it would have been a nice parallel to Star issues with her mother. As for the antagonists, I find them to be a mixed bag. Of all the villains, Ludo ended up becoming the best one, which is surprising considering how he was a joke villain in Season 1. Yet over the course of Season 2, we see him become a more reliant, cunning, and dangerous antagonist, along with learning how he became who he was due to his terrible childhood. I was surprisingly happy when Ludo eventually gave up his evil ways and found happiness with his siblings. Next is Taffy, and I can describe his character perfectly in 4 syllables. Overrated. So, when he first debuted in the show with his cool mannerism and the mysterious line about how Ludo isn't the only monster to be harmed by the butterfly family, I was invested in him. I remember thinking to myself, finally, we have a legitimate serious villain in this show. Yet in the end, he arguably ends up being the weakest antagonist of the series after 3 seasons of build-up. As I mentioned in the story section, the show never really delves into Taffy's character and how he was able to do the things that he did. All we get is a bare minimum, which really isn't enough to make him a compelling character. In an interview, Darren explained that Taffy was the Magneto of the show, yet she didn't do any of the things with him that makes Magneto a great character in the first place. What makes Magneto a compelling character is that because we know that he's a mutant who was also a Holocaust survivor, his violent stance for protecting mutants and his prejudice against the humans who treat mutants like monsters make perfect sense. Yet with Taffy, we got absolutely nothing that backs up Darren's claim of him being the show version of Magneto. It's not like we even needed a whole flashback sequence showing Taffy's life as a child to help explain his motives. Just having a scene where Taffy looks longingly at a picture of someone he cared about who died as a result of the war with the humans would have backed up the Magneto comparison while also adding layers to his character. It's possible to make a villain engaging even if you don't know their origin, but since Taffy seems to be the kind of villain who believes he's a hero, there needed to be a scene or line that showcased his way of thinking. Meteora ends up being a better villain than Taffy since unlike him, we get to learn more about her past and how she ended up being who she was with her motives making perfect sense. That said, more should have been done with her since her appearances in Season 2 didn't amount to much. The Magical High Commission becoming villains was something that should have been hinted at instead of coming out of nowhere. Back in Season 2, we were given no indication to suspect that they would end up becoming villains. If they were always going to be villains, then we shouldn't have gotten episodes such as Running with Scissors and Crystal Clear, in which Star and Marco each formed a friendship with a member from the Magical High Commission. The friendship that was formed between Romulus and Star was forgotten about after Season 2, and I find the fact that Marco still hung out with Hecapoo after the events of the trial to be weird. I understand that they have a history together, but at the same time, I feel like Marco wouldn't approve of what Hecapoo did and wouldn't want to hang out with her anymore. The Magical High Commission are probably my least favorite villains since them becoming villains just felt very forced. Finally, there's Mina, who's only slightly better than Taffy since just like Meteora and Ludo, we learn about her past and how she became who she was due to the brief flashback of her when she was younger. That said, as badly underutilized as Meteora and Taffy was, Mina was utilized even worse. She was randomly introduced as a joke character in Season 2, featured majorly in one episode of Season 3, and then was suddenly made the final antagonist of Season 4 after popping up in a few episodes. Are you noticing a pattern with the villains? Of all the villains in the show, Ludo was the one that was focused on, utilized, and developed the most. If they couldn't take the time to flesh out all these major antagonists, then there shouldn't have been as many as we ended up getting. Last, but certainly not least, it's time to talk about the romance of the show. I was tempted to make a whole separate video regarding this, but due to how integral it became in later seasons, I figure it only makes sense to talk about it in this video. While Season 1 didn't really have any romance drama, and Season 2 had the Stalker and Joker love triangle, which I honestly didn't mind, Season 3 and 4 went overboard with the romance. I already shared my thoughts on Time Star in my Season 3 video, so I'll keep my thoughts on the ship brief. Having Star and Time get back together was a mistake. While I understand what the writers were trying to do by having Star try to move on from Marco, it ends up undermining Time development for Mr. Candle Chaos, in which he learns that he can't force Star to get back together with him and how he needs to move on. I rather would have had Star date Oscar or Jana instead of Tom, since with those two, they didn't go through character development that would end up being undermined. Yes, Star was the one who seemed to initiate the idea of her and Tom becoming a couple again, but it was still unnecessary. I wish we would have just had the two become friends instead of becoming a couple again. Tom Star was also stressed out for far too long and should have ended much earlier in Season 4 since the show was just delaying the inevitable breakup. I, like many other fans, believed that Star and Tom would break up in the episode Lake House Fever, since with Star being trapped with Tom, Star kissing Marco would finally be brought up. And while the kiss was brought up, Tom still wanted to try to make things work, while Star tried leaving so she wouldn't have to talk about the kiss anymore. The episode ends with Star choosing to spend time with Tom's family instead of having dinner with Marco and his parents, but this ends up being pointless since Tom ends up breaking up with her later in the season. I don't understand why Tom Star didn't end in this episode, but was instead stretched out for 17 more episodes. While Star does care about Tom, it's obvious that she feels closer to Marco since she would talk to him about things that she wouldn't talk to Tom about, such as when she was flying through portals in her sleep. Plus, Star was a pretty bad girlfriend to Tom since she would belittle him and not always treat him the best. The two just wanted different things. Tam wanted a genuine relationship while Star wanted something to distract how she feels for Marco. Though as unnecessary as Tam Star was, Kelko was even more unnecessary, which is ironic since I do like Kelko. Kelko is a cute ship, and the idea of Marco and Kelly becoming a couple works, but there was no need to do it. My biggest problem with Kelko is how it totally undermines the Jocko breakup. The whole reason why Jocko ended was that Jackie could tell that Marco wanted to be with Star, and he was forcing himself to make a relationship with her work. Yet after a bit of ship teasing in season 3, they had Marco and Kelly become a couple, kind of, in season 4. I suppose Kelko was meant to serve as a parallel to Tam Star, with Marco trying to move on from his feelings for Star, but the show basically traded in one love triangle for two love triangles, only unlike the first love triangle, the new ones were frustrating. And to make matters worse, after all that build up with Kelko, they break up off screen, so what was even the point? I love that a friendship formed between Marco and Kelly due to both of them dealing with matters of the heart, but that all they should have been, friends. Now obviously I can't talk about the romance of the show without talking about the most popular ship of the show, Starco. I've been a fan of Starco since season 1 and I've been wanting to see the two get together forever. While I am happy that the ship is canon, the execution of the ship was a huge mess. Throughout season 1, we get several moments of Star and Marco caring deeply for each other with hints that both have romantic feelings for each other. Season 2 shows how much closer Star and Marco have gotten since their first meeting, with Star unknowingly developing feelings for Marco and Jocko serving as a launching point to make Star realize that she has feelings for Marco. While I had no problem with Starco for the first 2 seasons, I started having problems with it in season 3 due to the way it was being handled. One of the biggest mistakes of season 3 in my opinion was waiting 19 episodes to have Star and Marco talk about Star Confession from the season 2 finale. During my first watch through, I remember it being very frustrating how the show was taking forever to bring up that plot thread, and it was just as annoying the second time around. I understand that they are teenagers, but I feel like the staff could have at least attempted to have the two talk about the confession. Imagine this. In an episode in which Marco is staying on Muni during the summer, give us a scene in which both Marco and Star tries to talk to the other about what happened in the season 2 finale, but both hesitate for different reasons. For Star, when she goes to talk to Marco, she overhears him talking to Jackie and realizes that while she has feelings for Marco, she doesn't want to ruin what Marco has with Jackie. In the same episode, when Marco goes to talk to Star after talking to Jackie to see if he really does have feelings for Star or not, he overhears Star having a conversation with her parents about how Luda and Taffy wouldn't have attacked the kingdom if she was more responsible and that she needs to be a better princess. After hearing this, Marco would decide to not talk to Star about the confession since he doesn't want to burden her with something that would just stress her out even more. By doing it this way, we can see that Star and Marco still care deeply for each other, but they don't want to mess things up for the other by talking about the confession. The build up to Marco realizing that he had feelings for Star should have also been executed better. Lava Lake Beach wasn't as effective as making me feel bad for Marco like Just Friends did for Star. For Star, I watched her slowly realize that she has feelings for Marco, with her doing her best to suppress those feelings in order to not ruin his relationship with Jackie through the span of multiple episodes. So when I see Star watch Marco and Jackie share a kiss, I feel bad for her. But with Marco, we didn't get any of that gradual build-up in which he slowly realized that he had feelings for Star. So even though I do feel bad for Marco when he sees Tam and Star kissing each other, seeing him realize his feelings for Star isn't as soul-crushing as it was when Star realized her feelings for Marco. While I have been back and forth on whether or not if the stalker kiss in Booth Buddies was a good idea, I eventually realized that it was a huge mistake, especially given how it results in nothing major. Even though Star and Marco kiss, the two never even bring up the kiss again, and when Tom learns about the kiss, it doesn't even make him break up with Star. I understand that the idea of the kiss was to emphasize that Star and Marco still have romantic feelings for each other, but we didn't need a kiss to tell us something we already knew. Then there's the whole situation of the blood moon. There was a group of fans within the fandom that were convinced that the curse of the blood moon made Star and Marco fall in love with each other. Now, I personally never bought that theory, since even before the blood moon dance, it was clear that Star and Marco were developing feelings for each other. Still, the idea of whether the feelings Marco and Star felt for each other was genuine or was the result of a magical experience was an interesting concept on paper. Yet the actual execution of the concept was awful. Not only did the show not address the blood moon in a significant way until its final season, but the way it was resolved makes no sense. The Silverwing Stone erased the moment Star and Marco fell in love with each other, and they felt no romantic feelings toward each other after the memory was removed. Yet this is quickly undermined by the next couple of episodes. In Night Shift, you have Marco beat up an entire room of knights when a cape Star made him is about to be born, and you see Star worrying about where Marco is and how she's saying she's going to miss him when he leaves. Then in Doop Doop, as soon as Tom leaves Star to figure some things out, the first place Star decides to go to was Marco's house. In Shenanigans, Tom himself points out to Marco how they both know it was never the blood moon that resulted in Star and Marco having feelings for each other. And in Here to Help, Marco says he had been in love with Star since the start, and the feelings he had for her have only grown since then. These episodes clearly illustrate that Star and Marco still have romantic feelings for each other even though the Silverwing Stone got rid of the Blood Moon Ball memory. So why was it that they felt no romantic feelings for each other after the ceremony? Were they just in denial or something? The Blood Moon plot point was pointless in the long run, with it not being fully explored just like many other things in the show. It was introduced as this mysterious event that may have affected Star and Marco in an unknown way, yet all it ended up doing in the end was creating annoying romance drama within the show and arguments within the fandom. As for Marco's line about being in love with Star from the beginning, this, like many other ship-related things in this fandom, sparked a bunch of arguments. I was a bit unsure about the accuracy of this line at first and thought that the staff basically shot themselves in the foot with this line since it contradicts previous moments and actions Marco have done. However, after rewatching the first 2 seasons, I can kind of buy Marco's line since there are over a dozen moments from the first 2 seasons you could dissect that arguably prove that what he says is true. As to why the truth box didn't detect that Marco was lying, my best answer to that was the fact that he necessarily wasn't lying, since even though he had feelings for Star, he also had feelings for Jackie, and it's not impossible to have feelings for more than one person at the same time. That does raise the question as to why it wasn't the same case for Star, but I am not going to give myself a headache trying to figure that out. I do think it would have been better if the writers let the audience decide when was the moment Marco fell in love with Star, instead of giving us an exact answer. Though the biggest thing related to Stalker I've seen people argue about is how Star and Marco both returned to the realm of magic to be with each other. This is one of the few things regarding the ship that doesn't bother me. So many people have complained about how it makes no sense for Star and Marco to give up their entire lives to be with each other, but like, have they not been watching this show? The two have literally risked their lives for each other multiple times, with them being willing to do whatever it takes to save the other. In Storm the Castle, Star was willing to give up her wand, the most powerful item in the universe that has been in her family for centuries, to save Marco's life. And in Bon Bon, Marco would rather be sucked into the portal with Star than let her go. Also, love makes people do crazy and dumb things. The most famous love story of all time, Romeo and Juliet, had the two leads willing to leave their entire lives behind even though they have only known each other for less than a week. So between these two things, I don't understand how this is out of character for Star and Marco. So even though I was smiling like an idiot when we got an official stalker kiss that didn't feel wrong due to the fact that Star wasn't in a relationship, the execution was still sloppy and I really wish the ship was handled better. Star vs. the Forces of Evil was an interesting series in which the first half of the series was fantastic, but then the second half kinda went off the rails since it seemed to lose focus on what kind of show it wanted to be. Many fans have been begging for a 5th season or a movie, and while I was initially in favor of those possibilities, I'm more hesitant now. I'm open to the idea of another season or movie exploring the new world the show ended on, along with it resolving lingering plot threads, but with how disappointing season 3 and 4 was, I'm not sure if I even want any more of the show. While I have many issues with Star in its final 2 seasons along with how it ended, I still enjoyed the show in a sense. The first 2 seasons are still the best, but there are some good episodes and elements in season 3 and 4. And even though the fandom can be really frustrating, especially due to the shipping, I love all of the amazing content I see for this show, especially all of the fun and diverse AUs. So what do you think of Star vs. the Forces of Evil as a whole? Did the show become less enjoyable as time went on, or did you love it from start to finish? What were your favorite and least favorite things about the show? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, make sure to leave a like on my video and subscribe to my channel so you can see my future videos. Also click the bell so you can be notified when I make a new video. If you want to follow me on social media, you can find the links to them in the description box below. Until next time, this is PC, logging off.